We're back to the NGX here, our studio right here at the NGX in Marina. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Business, a business morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we're coming to you straight from our studio at the NGX premises in Marina, Lagos. But as usual, we'll start from the global business, that's oil. And we saw the Federal Reserve yesterday, their decision seems to be more of uncertainty, I would say. That seems to be the sentiment globally now. So we saw that the market too, oil market, just a little bit changed in early trade today. Markets are still watching out for President Donald Trump, his tariff threat. I wonder when that will come on. One was supposed to start February, and we know that tomorrow is the last day in January. So the tariffs on Mexico, Canada, they are the two largest suppliers of crude oil to the United States. We'll see how that will affect their relationship. But looking at the numbers now, we see an increase of 7 cents on Brent. That's about 0.1% to $76.71 a barrel, while WTI added 17 cents. A whole lot more seems to be happening with WTI because that's the crude for the United States. So 17 cents is about 0.2% to $72.79 a barrel. And they settled, that's U.S. crude as WTI, settled at its lowest price yesterday, Wednesday. On the demand front, we see crude oil stockpiles in the United States rose by 3.46 million barrels last week, roughly in line with analysts' estimates that it will rise to about 3.19 million barrels as winter storms that swept the country last week hit refinery utilization. Unfortunately, the U.S. Central Bank held rates yesterday, Wednesday, and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that there will be no rush to cut them again until data showed a renewed decline in inflation or rising risks in the jobs market. I think we're warned about this since late last year, but markets still react to it. Well, a huge, I guess I can say that 17 Naira seems to be huge appreciation on one of the platforms trading the Naira at the close of trade yesterday. That's NAFEX. NAFEX rate saw notable appreciation, added 17 Naira, 77 kobo to settle at 1,516 Naira, 73 kobo. NFM opened on a bearish note. Remember the day before, we did not have closing numbers because of the FX code that the CBN has introduced. So that stalled and we couldn't get a lot of data. But at the close of trade yesterday, we saw trading of the Naira was between 1,500 and 1,510 on the official windows. Of course, we know for the parallel market, it went as low as 1,006 above that, but not up to 1,007. I didn't see that yesterday. Now, electronic payment transactions in Nigeria reached an all-time high of 1.07 quadrillion in Naira, and that happened in 2024, marking the first time the country has hit that mark. This is approximately $702.6 billion, and the value represents a 79.6% increase compared to 600 trillion Naira that was recorded in the preceding year, 2023. December 2024 saw the highest monthly total, with Nigerians spending 115.1 trillion through electronic channels, driven by festive season spending, and this marked the peak of a steady increase in e-payment transactions throughout the year. The volume of electronic transactions also grew, rising from 9.7 billion in 2023 to 11.2 billion in 2024. That indicates a 15.5% increase. So does it mean that Nigeria is getting more e-transactions? I guess that's a conversation for another day. An ongoing matter around the First Bank of Nigeria has an update. That was yesterday. First Bank of Nigeria shared its reaction to court's ruling, which set aside the ex parte order freezing the assets and accounts of General Hydrocarbons Limited, GHL in connection with a disputed $225.8 million loan. Aviation says, contrary to reports circulating the media, that GHL and its directors are still under the shackles of court injunctions. They are saying that the bank is saying that it is important to stress that the injunction orders made by Justice Dikpeolu on December 30, 2024 were 8 in number, out of which only 2 of them were Mareva orders. The bank further says that other injunction orders, namely orders 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, were not discharged or set aside and remain valid and subsisting. For the avoidance of doubt, First Bank maintains that GHL and its directors are still restrained from dealing with or dissipating monies in their respective accounts and assets connected to the subject matter of the suit. So that's an ongoing matter right there, and First Bank thought it was important to clarify what's going on. Now let's go back to that event of yesterday in the United States, which we know is affecting markets all around the world. That's the decision of the Federal Reserve at the close of their 2-day meeting. That's the first one for the year. A whole decision is what we saw. That was expected, but let's see if the market is reacting. We have Dr. Ifeoma Nwokolo right here, manager with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much, Dr. Ifeoma, for your time. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Jenny. Good morning.
Yeah, so the world was expecting a whole decision. So has it made any difference? Have we seen the market move one way or the other?
Okay, the decision last night by Fed was a good one, even though the president was demanding for a cut in rates. So this decision alone shows that Fed is autonomous and independent, and it will further increase investors' confidence in one aspect, following the flurry of policy plans that the new administration came in with. So it's not to press the pause button was the right decision, because the tariff on its own will result to inflationary pressure, because you're going to see more demand on domestic commodities, and when you don't have enough supply, it leads to inflation.
So you're saying that this decision is in preparation for the tariff that the president has been threatening?
Aside the tariff, we have a lot of policies that could trigger inflation. We have the deportation. We are hearing the drum of deportation becoming louder and louder, and if this happens, it strains the supply, the labor market. So the supply of labor is low when demand is high, and when this happens, wages becomes high, and this is inflationary. So looking at all of this uncertainty, Fed, the only thing they would have done is to cut rates, is to hold rates, and this rate that they held has increased the value of dollar, as we see. And since the value of the dollar has increased, what happens to Naira? The value of Naira weakens.
So it's not very good for us.
It's not very good for us, because we import. I said the other time that we're an import-dependent country. So we import. So we need more Naira to import now. So it's a minus for us. And also when it comes to performing our international obligations, payment of debt, and all that becomes higher for us. It's not that the debt increased, but because
the value of the Naira is reducing, so that's
is a constraint for us.
But what's this doing to our commodity market? What's happening there, domestic and imported?
Okay, domestically we begin to see that prices of commodities are beginning to decline, or because of demand, low demand. Of course, you know that consumers are strained at this time. So a lot of people are beginning to be discretional in their spending, and also seasonalities like crops like tomato, onions are beginning to decline because of seasonalities. Then another factor is that the inflation stocking factors, which include exchange rates, have become stable for quite some time. So this is going to impact imports, because importation price is stable. So the pass-through effect is also stable. That's what we saw.
But we have this threat from the U.S. We just talked about how the dollar is threatening, and that, of course,
that will be a reverse. in the medium to near term, we are likely going to see a reverse if we don't have enough supply to cushion this effect. So we saw this in December inflation numbers. We saw that the magnitude of change was very, very low. And we saw that food inflation actually declined. So these stocking factors, oil price, let me say the price of PMS was somehow stable. So that was why we saw this decline. And with the rebasing of CPI, we are going to see inflation come down, even though that is technical.
Yeah, that's another matter.
Yeah, even though that is technical, and we know that MPC is meeting very soon. I know that
it is on the 17th.
Yes, on the 17th, 18th. Yeah. The rebasing numbers, they should be out. Any decision, it will be out before
it should be out tomorrow, yes, 31st. That's when we're promised.
It will be out tomorrow. It will not. I'll say the MPC will not make decisions based on those numbers because they are not reality. That's not what we see today. But I know that the MPC is actually going to hold rates to see.
So that's the projection of FDC.
Yes.
That there will be a hold.
There will be a hold.
Okay.
In order to see direction of the inflation, even after the rebasing of the basket.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when I saw Canada cut, even with the threat of tariff. Because I think we saw Japan held also. Yes. So because of, we're waiting for President Trump. It's a Trump world we're living in now. Everybody's waiting for President Trump. And that also affects Nigeria.
When Americans need the whole world catch cold.
Wow. I wish we could change that very soon.
Hopefully.
All right, Dr. Ifeoma Nwokolo, Manager, Financial Derivatives Company, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me in.
Great. All right, now, the International Air Transport Association, that's IATA, they've released their Global Air Cargo Market Performance, reviewing the year 2024, including a breakdown for December. The report highlights that global air cargo demand reached record growth of 11.3% year-on-year in the year 2024. For African airlines, cargo demand increased by 8.5% compared to the previous year, showing a rise in both people and goods being transported by air. However, in December, the region experienced a 0.9% drop in demand, the smallest increase among all regions.
With passenger demand up 13.2%. That's the second fastest growth globally. Capacity grew 9.9% and load factor reached 74.9%, which is a record high. Cargo demand also surged in Africa, rising 8.5% year-on-year, with capacity up 13.6%. Now, globally, 2024 was a record-breaking year for air travel. Passenger demand grew 10.4%, outpacing capacity growth of 8.7% and pushing load factor to a new high of 83.5%. Global air cargo demand increased 11.3% year-on-year, surpassing 2021's record volumes, with capacity also up 7.4%.
Welcome back. We're still here at the NGX studio here in Lagos. And yes, we're talking about GDP and CPI rebasing. We're expecting those numbers tomorrow, but how far-reaching will those numbers be? You heard Dr. Nwokolo there talk about how already there seems to be some uncertainty and disbelief about how realistic those numbers will be. But don't take my word for it. We have the group CEO of Carry Asset Management, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, here with us. Mr. Chukwu, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So we're expecting rebased numbers tomorrow. But already, we're thinking of what happened with the unemployment numbers. And a lot of people are saying it looks like data coming from the MBS will not be taken into consideration or seriously after this, because if you tell us that just like the US and I think the UK, our unemployment is 4%, then I don't know how you want us to work with that number. And now we're rebasing the GDP and the CPI, and you know, the notion is the same will be applied with those two data when they are rebased.
Well, you know what you say, that's actually of great concern, because the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics is the custodian and the publisher of statistical data on the country. Their information is supposed to be used as input material for decision making, both private sector operators and business, government, public sector operators. So if we begin to doubt the value or the authenticity of their data, then it becomes a major thing. And I mean, we had moved from an era where we didn't have an effective Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, where the central bank doubled as the Bureau of Statistics, and data was actually from CBN. Some of the data came 1 year late. But we got to a point where we could look forward to the data on unemployment, look for data on consumer price index, look for the data on GDP and other publications. They come out regularly. And unfortunately, we had a transition in leadership of Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. And the first thing that announced the new leadership was that adjustment in the basis for computing the unemployment labor force report, unemployment report. And then we're dealing with a country like ours, where the unemployed people in my village are more than 4.3% of the labor force. And then we are told that our unemployment rate in the region of 4.3%. And the likes of Germany, the likes of European Union has unemployment rate of 4.3%. And they are 4.2%. You're saying, look, so you're saying the level of unemployment in Nigeria is the same thing as what you have in Britain, what you have in Germany, what you have in France. And it completely reduce or vitiated the value people put on unemployment figure. And that's why people are worried that when you now rebase, you're not going to come up and tell us that the GDP has become $1 trillion, and then we can't make any use of it.
And then inflation is 5%.
So I think the doubt that people have expressed based on the new methodology for computing the unemployment rate should put the MBS on inquiry and make them ensure that whatever basis you use, whatever modification you use, whatever adjustment you do, you take into cognizance the uniqueness of your environment. You take into cognizance the structure of our economic environment, so that your data can continue to be used as tool for decision making.
So I know that the NBS DJO CEO was at an event organized by NESG. I think that was 2 weeks ago or so. And they did tell us that, they consulted with a lot of sectors, almost everybody concerned. So I guess it's too late for us to tell them what to do now. We can only wait and see and hope that it will be more realistic. Because if we do have an MBS where their data is being doubted, already there's the talk that inflation should be higher than what it is if we were to face the reality, because the basket has not been reconstituted in many, many years, more than 10 years. So if it was to be reconstituted to capture really the consumption pattern and trends of today, it should be higher. So I guess if we see a lower inflation number, unfortunately, we cannot, do anything to the NBS because they are the authority in that area. But I guess we might just be stuck in an economy where we do not know where to get reliable and quotable data. And that, of course, is not good for any economy.
Yeah, particularly for decision making, for planning, for corporate organizations, for the public sector, mostly for public sector. Because if you have data, for instance, you say, look, unemployment is 4.3%. What does that tell you? It simply means we have full employment in the country. So what should I do as a governor or as a president or as a minister to create employment? Because if you are telling me we have full employment, then everybody should be happy. Then similarly, if you come up with an inflation figure that says the inflation rate had dropped to 12% or so, the implication is that government people, public sector operators are not able to take appropriate decisions to remedy the situation that the citizens are facing. Because when we talk about the issue of unemployment, when we used to have an unemployment rate of 3%, it became a topical issue. It became something that the government had to do something quickly. The government was now thinking, how do we create employment? How do we stimulate the private sector they can create employment? What other intervention methods can we put in place? But if you have a figure that gives you a feel-good, kind of a feel-good, makes you feel good and say, look, well, I'm doing well, it becomes delusional, and not only become delusional, it constrains ability of government to take appropriate decisions. But I want to believe that we shouldn't continue to sound negative. We should expect
Let's be optimistic.
that the data we're going to get.
After all, we're told that, I mean, the new methods are globally accepted, and then we saw a list of, you know, developed countries and even those who are developing that are already, you know, who have already adopted this method. So I guess we should not complain.
The truth is that there is no economic parameter that is universally adopted, because the structure of consumption in the country is not the structure of construction, even in neighboring countries as close as Ghana. The distribution, the structure of our economy is not the same thing with the structure of British economy. You take, for instance, agriculture accounts for 28% of our GDP. What percentage of agriculture does agriculture account for in Britain? Agriculture here is basically subsistence farming. Agriculture in Britain is mechanized farming. So you call it agriculture, but they're not doing the same thing. Here people carry the hoe and the machete. Over there you have tractors that will cultivate 100,000 hectares in a few days. Here you need 100,000 people to cultivate 1 hectare. So you must develop your own mechanisms, your methodology to recognize your uniqueness. If I am 4 feet 5 inches height, I'm not going to start going to play basketball. I must recognize my height, and then I have to work on those things that are appropriate with my height. So we cannot say there's nothing called one size fits all when it comes to economic issues, because the variables change. Even if you look at the structure of Lagos economy, different from the structure of Ogun State economy, it's different from the structure of Oyo State economy. So you may not be able to adopt what Lagos State has adopted and then just take it and fit into Oyo State. It won't work. It will not work. Because look at, Lagos has the highest concentration of highly skilled labor force. Lagos has the concentration of almost all the multinationals as your head office. All the banks have Lagos as a head office. So if you look at, for instance, PAYE, you look at how much Lagos generates as PAYE, and you think you can mine and tax people in Oyo State and generate the equivalent amount, even though Oyo State may have a higher population, it will never work because the structures are different. So we must, as a matter of policy, ensure that we modify whatever methodology we want to adopt to fit into our unique economic environment, to fit into our unique social environment.
So while we stay optimistic for the CPI and the GDP, you know, we're expecting tomorrow is the 31st, we have our unemployment, and we've complained about it as the media. We've talked about it, that how can, I mean, what's the picture when, as you have noted, more than 4% is our unemployment? That means, I mean, governments can go to sleep. What can be done? Is it too late to change back the methodology, customize the methodology, you know, to actually reflect our realities?
Well, that's why people like us are very vocal when it comes to the issue of when data does not speak of the situation. It's like you go to hospital, you're having splitting headache, and the doctor said, I've just checked this, everything is fine with you. So the first thing you do is that you either tell the doctor, do more tests, and the doctor felt, then you go to another hospital. So it is left for government to recognize that today nobody uses unemployment figure as published by NBS, and tell the NBS, this your figure is useless, and that's a fact. I cannot go as a public sector operator, if I'm a public sector operator, even as a private sector operator, and say, look, unemployment rate in Nigeria is 4.3%. If you say it that way, they'll be looking at you. So who are those employed? Why do you have everybody looking for a job? So the government is not able to use it to plan how to create employment, to plan how economic development, to plan how to improve the living standard of citizens. So if it becomes useless, then it becomes compelling for the publishers of that data to review it and make it to be relevant. And we have said it severally, that data is useless today. And I'm sure, where do you see again anybody quoting unemployment figure in the country? Where do you see anybody telling government, look, you need to improve on them? Do you know, since that publication came out, you hardly do you see anybody at a public forum discussing the Nigerian level of unemployment and urging government that this level of employment is part of what is contributing to insecurity in the country. When you hear issues about Boko Haram, unknown gunmen, bandits, it is partly because those people are unemployed. So if we have data that says everybody's employed,
or at least more than 90% of Nigerians are employed.
Then it simply means
1 hour, 1 hour a week, and you are employed.
Yeah.
If you're busy 1 hour a week, you're already employed. Well, we do hope they'll do something about it. We'll stay on the matter. I mean, I guess that's all we can do. Thank you so much, Group CEO of Cowrie Asset Management, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
All right, then we're counting down to rebase numbers of the GDP and the CPI, but we are afraid, based on the unemployment scenario that we had, when Nigeria is just about 4 points level of unemployment, and you and I know the reality if you know anything about Nigeria. We'll see those numbers soon. I'll be handing you back to the Sunrise Daily studio, but Business Incorporated is up at 1:55 minutes of business is what you have, including the market. Enjoy the rest of your day.